Now, opponents of Donald Trump accuse him and his family of using the presidency to enrich themselves. Donald Trump has long said there is no conflict of interest between his business dealings and presidential policy. But a recent dinner for wealthy crypto investors at the US president's Virginia golf course is just the latest in a series of events driving the allegations of corruption.
Trump advertised his gala dinner as the most exclusive invitation in the world. Chinese billionaire Justin Sun, one of just 220 mainly foreign guests, posted a video of the experience on his Instagram account. The aim was to promote sales of Trump's cryptocurrency, which he issued just before his inauguration. The biggest investors, including Sun, were the ones given a seat at the table. Trump saw no problem with the event, calling it private and rejecting claims that he was using it to funnel money to his personal bank account and that the guests were using it to buy access to the President of the United States. But Trump's opponents were unequivocal in their condemnation.
We are here today to talk about exactly one topic: corruption. Corruption in its ugliest form. Donald Trump is using the presidency of the United States to make himself richer through crypto. And he's doing it right out there in plain sight.
The dinner is just the latest example of what critics say is the president's exploitation of his position for private gain. There's no clear information on exactly how much Trump's income has increased since he began his second term. But Forbes estimated his net worth in March at just over $5 billion, $1 billion more than last year. The White House insists there's no conflict of interest and no wrongdoing because the Trump family business is now being run by the president's sons and that Donald Sr.'s assets are in a trust managed by his children. But Trump's recent trip to the Gulf had even right-wing commentators asking questions about the blurring of the president's personal, political and commercial interests. And it wasn't just the controversial offer from Qatar of a plane to replace Air Force One, which many legal experts in the US fear could violate laws on taking gifts, something Trump refutes.
I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture.
Also raising eyebrows was the arrival of Trump's sons in the Gulf, just 2 weeks ahead of their father, and their success in securing a slew of deals for real estate projects, golf courses and crypto contracts, all worth billions in additional wealth for the Trump family. And despite claims that their father will not personally benefit from these investments, critics say it seems unlikely the timing of the visit was coincidental, fueling concerns that Trump is using all the power at his disposal to turn the highest officer in America into a money-making machine.
Well, for more on this, we can talk now to Lane Scheppele, a professor of sociology at the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. Great to have you on DW News. So, do you see conflict of interests between Donald Trump's business dealings and his role as President of the United States? Do they amount to corruption?
Of course, it's actually visible completely in plain sight. And this is, I think, what's shocking everyone, which is just how blatant it is. And so, yes, and also because any kind of criminal prosecution for bribery, we do have bribery laws, would be in the hands of people that he himself has appointed. So he really is acting like he's above the law right now.
All right, but then if he's above the law, but nothing is necessarily happening, how is he getting away with this, essentially? Can you explain that a little bit further for us?
Well, many of the things he's done would bring down any other leader. But remember, Trump's brand is that he's a businessman who keeps claiming smart people make money. And so I think for his followers, this is just more example, of exactly how he uses every opportunity he has to enrich himself. And I think he's holding himself out as a kind of role model for some of his followers. So yes, he's getting away with it. And I think his followers are cheering him on.
How are things different from the last time Donald Trump was in the White House? Do you think that he's sort of stepped up a gear? Is he sort of seeing how far he can push things?
Well, in some ways, we're seeing a continuation of what we saw last time. So going back to when he ran for president the first time, he has refused then and since to disclose his tax returns so that we can see what his wealth is, what the sources of his wealth are, and so on. He's always refused that. But at least in his first term, his family was more out in front, receiving the gifts that were being showered on them. And so he could claim plausible deniability. So this time his family's involved in it too, but this time he's really out there front and center, as your report showed, hosting dinners, advertising the price of dinners with him, and receiving gifts in plain sight that usually would have been banned under any other kind of government. But remember, he appoints all the ethics officers, and he appoints the law enforcers. And so really he doesn't have anything to fear.
All right, but some would say that he's just violating, say, norms, but not necessarily laws. How would you react to that?
Well, he's also violating laws about bribery, and there's also a constitutional provision that prevents the president from receiving what the Constitution calls in 18th century language emoluments, which is to say gifts of value. The big question is, who can actually prosecute him for that? And are there any private individuals who have been harmed by that who could sue? And I think what we've seen is that because of the way U.S. law is structured, it's been very easy for him to actually evade what are actually legal norms, but also just ethics norms. He's actually been able to also appoint all the ethics people reviewing his conduct. So again, we have this difficulty in the U.S. where if the president holds in his hands all the devices for prosecuting misconduct, including by himself, he can be blatant enough to just blow past the rules and get away with it.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, but great to have your insights. Lane Scheppele from the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you.